Hello and welcome, everybody. It is fantastic to welcome you all to Self Help Africa's sixth annual International Women's Day webinar under this year's theme Rights, Justice, Action for All Women and Girls. My name is Niamh de Lochry and I'm the CEO at Self Help Africa. And it is fantastic to see so many of you on today's call. This webinar has allowed us to really reach out far and wide for this event. And we've assembled a truly international panel of speakers in all. And our audience, we have people dialing in from Ireland, where I'm speaking to you, as well as from the United States, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Zambia, Malawi, France, and the UK. It's a truly exciting day for us all. I would encourage you to continue to entering into the chat where you are dialing in from to really enable us to have an interactive session today. Our objective today is to create a space for women leaders to highlight the importance of their work in the field, to showcase the impact of investing in women, to share lived experiences and leadership journeys, and to strengthen the focus on women's participation and empowerment. At Self Help Africa, gender equality is central to our mission and is embedded across all of our programs. We work to ensure women have equitable access to land, decent work, financial services, and agricultural opportunities. We support women farmers and entrepreneurs to grow sustainable livelihoods, strengthen food security, and exercise greater control over their incomes and futures. Our vision is a world where women we work with have equal rights, equal access to opportunity, and the ability to shape decisions that affect their lives and communities. This year, the UN theme for International Women's Day is Rights, Justice, Action for All Women and Girls. This year's theme comes at a critical moment. Around the world, justice systems are under increasing pressure. Conflict, political instability, and repression are eroding the rule of law in many contexts. For more than a century, International Women's Day has provided us with an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the achievements and leadership of women, while also shining a light on the persistent inequalities that still demand our attention and action. That is more important now than ever, as we all know. It is estimated that globally today, women have just 64% of the legal rights that are afforded to men. The absence of rights and justice for women mean that real protections from discrimination, exclusion, and more are nowhere near where they should be. Many seeking justice are turned away, re-traumatized, or unable to afford legal support. Systems often fail to protect women, and equality remains out of reach. This theme calls for urgent, tangible action, not just recognition. This year has also been designated by the United Nations as the International Year of the Woman Farmer in 2026. This is an important recognition of the role that women play in agriculture and global food systems. Across sub-Saharan Africa, women make up approximately 70% of the workforce on smallholder farms, farms that produce the majority of the continent's food. Research shows that if women had the same access to resources as men, farm productivity could increase by 20 to 30%. By supporting women farmers, women's economic empowerment is increased, which leads to a stronger voice in decision-making, greater financial independence, and more leadership roles for women for the future. By investing in Africa's women farmers, Self Help Africa is investing in Africa's future. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our exceptional panel of speakers and the order that our session will take place today. We'll start with Elizabeth Mandy from Zambia. She's an agronomist, FAO forest champion, and founder of Agro Queens. We'll then be joined by Ndidi Nweli, President and CEO of the One Campaign. At that point, we'll pause for a Q&A for both speakers. For the second half, we'll start with Vicky Dillon, Deputy Director in the Policy Unit at Ireland's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, We'll then introduce our very own Jacqueline Chalamera, nutrition specialist and project manager at Self Help Africa in Malawi. And last but not least, we'll conclude our event with Ruth Onyango, former parliamentarian, founder of Rural Outreach Africa, and editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Food, Agriculture, Nutrition and Development. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Elizabeth Manda, a young Zambian agronomist who is a UN Food and Agricultural Organization of Forest Champion and a Nutfield Scholar. She's also the founder of Agro Queens, a network for women involved in agribusiness, focusing on integrated farming enterprise in the production of high-value vegetables, agriculture, indigenous birds, and grains. Agro Queens also trains startup and emerging farmers in farming as a business. I'm delighted to hand over to Elizabeth Manda Sianga. Thank you so much and welcome everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to share my story and to speak with everyone that is listening in. And I just want to thank Self Help Africa for this opportunity. My names are Elizabeth Manda Sianga, and I am from Zambia. So I am an agronomist. I did my first degree in agricultural science, and I also pursued a master's in agribusiness. I'm also a farmer and doing integrated farming. So basically aquaculture, vegetables, grains, indigenous poultry, birds. And I also have keen interest in indigenous knowledge. So this is our indigenous seeds, vegetable seeds, maize seeds. So really preserving indigenous knowledge and documenting a lot of this. I'm also a forest champion. So even in my forest champion journey, it was more on growing of our indigenous trees, talking about the value of these trees, what they mean to us, and replanting of them. And I'm also a 2026 Nuffield International Scholar. And currently we are doing our Contemporary Scholars Conference in Japan. And it's really through agricultural initiatives that I've been able to gain such opportunities. And aside that, I work with women and youth in my community. So they are really the driving force for what we are doing. And I am based in a rural area in Zambia called Kafue. So Kafue is about 50 kilometers from our capital city. And it just is a good location in terms of market access and also a form of finding, labor within our area. So that's really just an introduction about what I do. So as I mentioned, I do have practical farm experience, and with the experience that I have, I also do use quite a lot of social media. And I graduated from my undergraduate studies about 7 years ago. And when I graduated, I decided that I would teach people how to farm online because I noticed a very huge information gap. And I decided that I was going to fill in that gap. And through my online initiatives, I've also been able to do trainings, of which I've trained over 5,000 people online. And during COVID, this was one way I was also able to generate an income, especially for the fact that it distorted the way I was doing business. And leveraging on my knowledge set and also charging for it was a way to open up this opportunity to gain an extra income from that. And even through social media, I get to work with different companies, advertising their products, their services. So social media has been a huge tool for me to grow myself as a young professional and to also market my business, to also market myself. There are different opportunities that I've been able to gain through online experience and just through sharing my journey as a young farmer and a young person. So over here, like I mentioned, I run an integrated farming enterprise. And in the first picture, that is where whatever we comes from the fields, we don't waste it. And so it was basically a compost heap, and that was what I was showing. And then in my hands, it's one of the indigenous seeds that I had mentioned. So really on the farm, one part of the business plows back into the other. So the integrated model works for us because water from the fish ponds irrigates the crops, and then our maize feeds the chickens, and our droppings from the chickens goes back in the pond, and anything from the fields is turned into compost manure. So really that just helps us manage costs. And also, farming as a business is, the market prices are not stable. So growing different things at different times of the year just helps us manage risks and also just manage our costs at the same time. So like I mentioned, the farm, we manage waste, and that helps us maximize efficiency. So like I mentioned, we have the maize seeds, which are for seed sharing. And I really pushed a campaign that we plant our local seeds, though, it's a controversial topic, especially with multinational companies. But really to preserve this seed, to preserve this indigenous knowledge is very important for us. And we also do have an orchard. So water from the fish ponds goes into the orchard, and during the rain season, we're able to generate an income from the fruits. So that's lemons and oranges. So for those who are, planning on starting to farm as a business, you can even start with trees. Though it's a long-term investment, it's also a good investment, especially if you can't really be practical and, really hands-on on your farm. A great start would be an orchard. So we really try to promote zero waste on the farm, and make sure that everything is used on the farm. And this is also a very good model for, smallholder farmers, small, people starting their businesses. It's something that they can look into and see how to manage waste and also be profitable as a farmer. So like I mentioned, we do fish. So that's some of the fish. Although we have had challenges, especially that in Zambia, we're going through very serious power crisis. We're having load shedding, so meaning some days would go 2 days without power. So our biggest buyers stopped buying our fish. And also general, households were not storing anything in their freezers. And people were buying, their meat products every single day, which then, forced us to slow down in our fish production. However, our power situation has gotten better and people are evolving to solar. So really, we're learning as we go on. We are still experiencing, challenges, difficulties, but all in all, it's really a learning curve. And even with the chicken business, we thought in the beginning, a lot of people said, there's a lot of money in indigenous chickens. And once we got into it, we then realized that for the average Zambian household, they are only able to really afford the broiler chicken, which is slightly cheaper. And then that just made us realize that how important it is to do, market research. And so for this one, for the indigenous chickens, it's also just a specific clientele that orders it. So really doing market research, not following trends is also very important. But also through the power of social media, it was a very terrible market day. And I was just talking about how I was in the market on one particular day, and a customer sent a message that they would like chickens, and I had live chickens on that day. And they wanted them slaughtered, and you can imagine it's a market day. We are in the market, we're not on the farm, not at home. So we had to make a plan on how to supply those chickens and secure that market. So really working under pressure, taking up risks and just, finding ways to be innovative. So that's why you're seeing these dressed chickens, because eventually we managed to find a market, and that was through the power of social media. And my post really on that day wasn't advertising chickens, but just awareness that I was in the market and testing the market for the chickens. So we also do high value vegetables, and we do package them. This was when we were really supplying our chain stores. Right now we do a lot of open market sales. So we do have facilities for packaging. The ladies in the pack house, they wear uniforms. So really we follow food and safety regulations. We train the women, and through the work they were doing, they were able to generate, reasonably good pays, because it was target based work, meaning we would pay them more. The more you pick, the more you pack, you earn more. And this was a way that would really encourage them than giving them flat rates. So it was a very competitive job for them. So it was a plus for us, because we'd get work done on time, and for them who pack faster, who do more, would earn even more money. So we enjoy working with women. We believe that women are very organized, very neat, especially in pack houses, and very sensitive jobs. You find that it's women who are, doing a great job. If you want to take care of baby pigs, if you want to take care of chickens, it's women who are very gentle with what they do. And so really our sensitive tasks on the farm are really led by women. So planting activities, harvesting activities, these are all driven and led by women on the farm. So basically, I am still also on the campaign with, seed sovereignty, food sovereignty, the indigenous seed campaigns, and, just keeping this knowledge together, keeping all of this. So really trying to educate farmers in rural areas. If I tell you, 3 years ago, it was a neighbor farmer who gave me a kilogram of our local seed, which I managed to multiply to over close to almost 500 kg of seed. And we were hit by a drought, because we do, risk management, and we were irrigating that maize. She never, the one who gave me the seed, never had seed in return. And one thing I do every single year from the time that I got the seed from her is I always give her 20 kg of whatever I harvest, because she lost her seed. So really, in whatever agribusiness you do, think of the environment, tie your business to, climate change. Even when you're looking for funding, they need to see an aspect of, how are you managing your business in relation with climate. So that's also very important for, people starting their agricultural businesses. Think of the climate aspect in it. Also think of, how do you work with the community? How do you embrace the community that you're working with? So which is also very, very key. And there are models where you're trying to look for funding, they need to see your impact. What impact do you have? And really, load shedding, issues of COVID did distort a lot of our operations, but we were what do you call this, running out grower programs, where we would train farmers in our area, provide them the seed, and buy the produce back from them at, competitive prices. And also this was just showing, impact in the community. And we've also received funding, and through the funding they wanted to see the aspect of how are you working with your community. So integrating your community in your work, in your business, is also very key. So we do work with people in our community, women in our community. So training is also something that We enjoy doing training on how we should manage vegetables, especially with health and safety regulations in terms of, chemical use. We really try and ensure that we don't have too much, we don't want any of the food intoxicated, so we have to train our farmers as well.
That's amazing, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for that. And what a way to kick us off for our first session. If I could ask everybody to hold your questions or start putting them into the chat, and we will take them after we have our next speaker. And I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, Ndidi Okonwo-Iweala, President and CEO of the One Campaign. She holds an MBA from Harvard University, is the founder of Sachel Consulting Agriculture and Nutrition, West Africa's leading agri-food ecosystem consulting firm, of Africa Food Changemakers in Nigeria, and Ace Foods, which produces a range of packaged spices. Ndidi Okonwo-Iweala is currently on the boards of Stanbic IBTC Group and the Forum of the Young Global Leaders. It is a great pleasure to welcome you here today. Thank you so much, Ndidi, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy International Women's Day to all of you and all the agribusiness entrepreneurs on the line. Thank you as well for joining us. I have a short presentation. I hope you can see my screen. I will put it on full mode. It's always an honor and privilege to engage with you all. And I'm so glad to have come after Elizabeth, because she's one of the reasons why we do the work we do. And I will just zero in on the issue of the theme for this year, which is Rights, Justice, and Action for International Women's Day. I've been speaking on these issues for the last almost 30 years, and I often wonder, why are we still here? Why are these issues still so important? And what is preventing us from achieving rights, equity, justice, and action? And what can we do individually and collectively to address these issues? When I look at the statistics, and when I was just introduced, you can see that I've worn many, many hats globally and locally. Statistics like this are still really glaring. Only 10% of landowners in Nigeria are women. And this was replicated across Africa and many emerging markets. In spite of their contributions and our contributions to economic growth and development, and I'm using Nigeria as an example, only 10% of loans go to women, even though evidence shows that 95% of the loans taken by women are repaid. Globally, we still see the same statistics. In fact, the UN says that no country has achieved full legal equity and equality between men and women, not one country. Globally, women enjoy only 64% of the legal rights compared to the men. And at this pace, it will take 286 years to close the legal protection gap. That is glaring and alarming. I've worn many, many hats as a social entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Leap Africa, which works in 8 African countries, inspiring, empowering, and equipping the next generation of African leaders. Sahel Consulting, which was mentioned. Ace Foods, which is an agro-processing company. We source from 10,000 farmers. We process spices, snacks, and flowers for local communities and globally. And then African Food Changemakers. And if you're a food and ag entrepreneur and you're not on the African Food Changemakers website, please do join. We have data and funding and jobs and events and linkages for ag and food entrepreneurs now in 49 African countries. And my most recent startup is called Wealth for Impact, focused on generational wealth and generational impact. I say all this to say I was starting businesses and struggling to scale them. Because one of the biggest challenges we have is that most of our female entrepreneurs are concentrated in the micro and small business landscape. We're not scaling. Because of the barriers we've talked about, land. Why is land so important for women? Because you need to invest in irrigation for your land, in soil health for your land. And if you don't own it, the incentive to invest is limited, right? Women need land as collateral to get access to affordable financing, to grow their businesses, to ensure that they can build processing facilities and pack houses. And as I wrote this book, I recognized that we weren't scaling for a number of reasons. And I came up with this model that to scale, you need data-driven business models that are demand-driven. You need to invest in technology and innovation as part of your ecosystem and your business model. You have to ensure that your solutions and your interventions are low cost, because that allows them to be affordable and accessible. You have to have systems and structures that enable scaling. And you have to be able to tell your story. Communications is critical. And finally, which Elizabeth mentioned, you have to have resilience built into your DNA. Climate shock is real. COVID shocks were real. Many entrepreneurs did not survive. And so resilience and adaptability to the constant changes in macroeconomic and microeconomics challenges are key. We see the crisis in the Middle East and how it's affecting fuel prices already. So those type of shocks are constant. Now, how do you build resilience and embed it within your DNA? And this is critical for women and men who want to scale their businesses. Through the work we've done at Sahel Consulting, we've recognized that there are real challenges around women scaling, in particular because in many, many communities, access to land, access to finance is key, but also access to voice, a seat at the table, decision-making power, interventions. And as basic as dairy development, we realized that many women didn't own cell phones because they couldn't, their husbands hadn't given them permission to own cell phones. We're still there. So their ability to get paid on a daily basis for the milk they sold through digital platforms was limited by their access to simple cell phone devices. So we started investing in training and extension and he for she movements and investing in educating the traditional rulers and the faith leaders about why if we rise, if women rise, we all rise together. It creates stability in the household. It creates better livelihoods for all. It's better for the children. And through this work, we've seen the power of transformation. Through African Food Changemakers, I also created the Leading Women in Food Fellowship. And this is really important. An important message is that we have to rise together. Elizabeth's story of how she has supported the woman who did not have yields is so important. We need to rise together. And through Leading Women in Food Fellowship, we're building a sisterhood of women who are rising together by providing knowledge and access and training and mentorship, but also visibility to tell the stories of women who are doing great things as storytellers, as producers, as change makers, as chefs, as cooks, as financiers, and creating that sisterhood. So please join the Leading Women in Food Fellowship. The power we have collectively on this platform to ensure that every time we're at a table, we're creating a seat for a woman. We're ensuring that a woman's voice is heard, but that we're ensuring that all genders' voices are heard. Because in some rooms now, men are starting to feel threatened and we cannot move forward if one group feels threatened. So we need to ensure that we're creating space for everyone. We're providing access to productive, affordable resources, and we're ensuring group participation. At One, we have done this at scale. At One, which is a global advocacy organization that I've been leading as the first African to lead this effort for the last 2 years, I've learned that it's not enough to start in small communities. It's critical that we have an advocacy agenda that comes alongside every intervention. And I'm sure Self-Help Africa recognizes this more than ever, that it's important for sustained change to have an advocacy agenda. So One fights for a more just world by demanding the investments needed to create economic opportunity and healthier lives in Africa. And our vision is that Africa is an equal player. We do this through data, through hard-hitting data, through our One Data platform, and please do check it out because affordable and free data for everybody. We have credible grassroots activism, and we believe in the power of youth voices and the power of social change agents, diaspora voices, celebrity voices to get into rooms that oftentimes we cannot. We believe in the power of government agency and government engagement and the power of credible campaigns. At the One campaign, we've galvanized over $1 trillion for investment in healthier lives and economic opportunity. We fought for women to have access to equal rights. And we had a very interesting campaign that said poverty is sexist, because we have to rise as a community and an ecosystem. We also did another campaign that says agri pays. And I believe agriculture is key to Africa's growth and development because it creates jobs, it unlocks opportunities. And we galvanize stakeholders around the world in our 9 offices around the world to fight for Africa and to change narrative as well about Africa. But to do this, we recognize that we need enablers. We need to shape policy. We need to shape finance. We need to shape culture. We need to galvanize support. We need to invest in human capacity, and we need to invest in market. It's really important as we think about the work we do, even at the micro level, and entrepreneurs like Elizabeth and many of you on the line. How are you getting involved in shaping policies that enable your value chain, that enable your ecosystem to thrive? From seed systems all the way to the fertilizer industry, and making sure it's affordable and accessible, all the way to processing facilities, all the way to market access, all the way to logistics providers. And I always say we have middlemen, and we need more middle women. We need more women owning trucks and warehouses, because that is a key bottleneck in our advancement as an ecosystem. We need more women financing other women. We need more women in insurance. So when we think about the value chain, how do we have a clear vision for what equity and inclusion and rights look across the board? How do we have community movements that support those who decide they're going to shape policy? And how do we protect them? And how do we speak up so that we also hold our governments accountable to deliver for people on the ground? Shaping policy is critical. And then finally, as I close, advice for your journey. Rights, justice, and courage and power begins at home. How we're raising our male and female children around equity and justice. How we're bringing our A game and excellence every time. How we're committing in our companies to a culture of equity, creating safe spaces for both genders, fostering innovation and integrity is critical. I remember once after speaking at International Women's Day session, I was asked, how are you creating safe spaces for women? And I realized very soon that as CFO at one of our companies was actually engaging in sexual harassment of staff. And I realized you need to ensure that you're speaking the talk, but also walking the talk, and creating safe spaces devoid of sexual harassment for both genders, devoid of zero tolerance for discrimination, ensuring equal pay for equal work for both genders, and ensuring that you actually model that behavior is critical. Investing in communities of support. We need to be sponsors and champions and critics and role models for each other. And we need to stay humble and grounded as we rise. This is really critical. There's a quote that inspires me every single day. And it's a young person speaking to an African president. He says, I'm no longer asking God to grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And those of you who are from Ireland know this prayer that we often learned growing up. He says, I'm asking the Almighty to grant me the wisdom and courage to change the things I cannot accept. I cannot accept that it's going to take over 200 years for us to have gender equity and parity when it comes to laws. I cannot accept that the face of Africa is a hungry child, or the face of poverty is a female farmer from Africa. I cannot accept that access to land and financing remains a challenge. We must have the courage and wisdom to change the things we cannot accept. We must empower each gender to rise in the food and agriculture ecosystem, and we must create equal rights for our children and grandchildren who hold us accountable for what we do today. Thank you so much.
Incredible, Ndidi. Thank you so much. And you've really mobilized us this morning, and really great to hear phenomenal stories there from both of our speakers this morning. I have a couple of questions that have come in through the chat, so I'll kick us off. Our first one, Ndidi, is for you around education. Girls' education is seen as one of the successes of the SDGs to this point. Although progress has slowed and there is some distance yet to go, for those who do complete their education, what advice would she give to young women to transition into leadership roles in business, politics, and civil society?
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're seeing lots of advances in early childhood education, equity in many, many secondary schools and universities, but we're not seeing the rise in the corporate world or the business world or even entrepreneurship at the same levels. And so there are three pieces of advice I would give. Number one is you must commit as a woman to lifelong learning. You don't stop at your formal education. It's a constant process. And that's why I say to every young woman, you need a role model, someone you look up to in every aspect. I found that I couldn't find one role model for all things. I needed a role model for marriage and a role model for career and a role model for board seats. I also realized that you need a critic, someone who can tell you the truth You need to empower that person to say, you can always tell me the truth. And Didi, you could have prepared better. And Didi, whatever it is. And you need a champion, sponsors who put you, open doors for you and put you in those spaces. The second is you need to bring your A game every time. I tell women, especially young women, there's no room for excuses. Excellence, 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 and integrity have no hiding place. So stay in your lane. Don't look at anybody else's career, but for everything you do, bring excellence and integrity to it. And the world will recognize you sooner rather than later. And finally, it's really important to stay humble and grounded. You know, in food and agriculture, I realized when I started my food company, it didn't matter that I had an MBA from Harvard. It didn't matter that I was on the board of Rockefeller Foundation. I had to stand in line to get my payment. Sometimes they say, go outside. You've sold my spices. Go outside and wait for 30 minutes. It's not your turn. Nobody gave a hoot that I had a national honor. The humility to go and stand outside until it's your turn to get your check. Even if that check is $20, eventually that check will be 20 million naira. Eventually that check will be, but you need to be humble and grounded and always ready to roll up your sleeves and do what it takes to deliver for your customers and to innovate and to keep doing better. And for me, that humility is critical as you rise, because it is so humbling to be in our food ecosystem and to continue to make change. But if you're not close to the ground and close to the customers, you become aloof and you stay disconnected and your business ultimately fails. So remember to stay humble and grounded.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll go to you. Didi, I have another one specifically for you. As a male in the industry, I would like to ask, what do you feel could be the best or the most important aspect for change for men to consider when trying to safely promote and engage with women and promoting them in a meaningful way?
That's such an excellent question, and I'm so glad that it's a guy asking that question. I strongly believe that the first step is, if you run a company and you're a male entrepreneur, can you review all the policies in your company to make sure that they're gender resilient and that gender is cross-cutting? Many times we have a blind spot on this issue, even when it comes to pay. Equal pay for equal work is one policy. Zero tolerance for sexual harassment is another policy. I can go down the line. There are some countries that have policies that say that women cannot work in factories at night. Now, is that a good policy? Let it be up to the woman to determine if she wants to work at night, but create a safe space for her to do so if it is her choice. So down the line, look at your company policies, look at the culture and practices of your company, and make sure that you're actively working to have equal representation of men and women in senior positions, and that your recruiting process is fair, open, and free without bias. Also, I recognize that many times in our boards and our senior management, we haven't set clear policies for that equity issue. And in many boards, I've been the first woman, and they would write letters saying, "Dear sirs," and I'd have to tell them, you now have a woman on your board, or there would be a male-only bathroom on the board floor. So make sure that those small things around the culture, the words you use, the choices you make are gender neutral as well. And then finally, actively promote and sponsor and support women. And do the same thing, women for men, because in some contexts, we have more women than men in some rooms. And that is also unacceptable, because we need both genders rising together. The final thing I'll say is that one thing that I gave a speech earlier today. You have to make sure in your home you're also practicing equity. And we talked about inheritance laws earlier today. Make sure that if you buy a home, you put it in your name and your wife's name, not Mr. and Mrs. Muneli, but Mr. Mezo and Mrs. Ndidi Muneli, because that's protecting your children. Culturally, sometimes in-laws come and take assets, and then our children don't have it. Protect your children by ensuring that you're empowering your wife with equal ownership for the things that belong to both of you and that both of you have worked hard for.
Thank you. Thank you. Very practical. I'll take one more, mindful that this may mean we're running over a bit already, but I think everybody is really engaged right now. My last question, where have we seen the most meaningful progress for women in Africa in the past decade, and what made it work?
I would say that for me, it's been in the banking sector. And that was because of clear policies around regulations that required women to have a seat at the table when it comes to from the board seats. Nigeria currently has 7 CEOs that are female of leading banks and more women who are board chairs than any other country that I'm aware of. And it was because of a simple policy by a Muslim leader, Lamido Sanusi Lamido, when he was the central bank governor. That was mind-blowing, and it broke all barriers because he insisted on 30% of board seats being given to women. Women showed up on those board seats and delivered excellent work. And today we have CEOs of leading companies. So there's a place for policy. In Rwanda, they did the same thing in government. And today, 50% of government leadership roles are held by women. 50% of parliament roles are held by women, simply because of a government policy. There's a need for quotas and policies, but don't give up on excellence and integrity, because if women who are so chosen based on merit into those roles come in, they deliver. And that has given us a lot of hope. Those two sectors, government in Rwanda and banking in Nigeria, have shattered stereotypes and broken barriers and elevated African women who are being celebrated across the world.
Thank you so much. And thanks to both you, Ndidi and Elizabeth, for kicking us off this morning for what has already been a very impactful session so far. We are now about to move into the second half, and we're going to kick this off now with Vicky Dillon, Deputy Director in the Policy Unit at the Department of Foreign Affairs, covering inclusive economic growth. And she serves as Deputy Governor for Ireland at the International Fund for Agricultural Development. She took up this role in 2025, having previously served as Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy of Ireland in Pretoria. She has over 15 years of experience working in international relations, including in Palestine and at the UN in New York. Welcome, Vicky.
Thanks, Niamh. Can you hear me okay? Great. And hi, everyone. It's such an honor to join today's panel, and I want to wish you all a really happy International Women's Day. And a big shout out to Ndidi for such a great call to action today, to have the courage to change things we cannot accept. I think that's an absolutely brilliant call to action for us all. And look, I first want to acknowledge that this year's discussion is taking place in the context of an increasingly uncertain and destabilising international environment. And it is deeply undermining gender equality and the human rights of women and girls. And it's really important to acknowledge this, but I also want to make Ireland's position very clear. It is absolutely essential that the global gains for gender equality that we've seen over the last number of years are protected and that they are advanced. And this is a central priority for us in our domestic policy and in our foreign policy. And I think we've also seen our own national journey of economic and social transformation. Advancing women's rights and equality has been critical to the improvements we've seen over the last 50 years. Ireland has become one of the most competitive and innovative economies in the world, and we have enjoyed massive social transformation. In the 1970s, employment rates for women, or since the 1970s, employment rates for women have almost trebled, and we've seen tertiary education attainment go from 3% to well over 50% now. In the last decade, the percentage of female-led businesses in our high potential startup programme has increased from 8% to 37%. And similarly, Ireland's rural economy and agriculture is a really major driver of our growth. But we know supporting women businesses is a huge part of supporting the rural economy. And supporting women entrepreneurs through the programmes that the Department of Agriculture has led over the last number of years has seen their businesses grow by almost 30%. Now, we have a lot more progress to make in Ireland, there's no doubt about that. But I think it's also really important that the government is unequivocal in its commitment to doing this, and it's a recognition of the importance of gender equality. And I think that's because we know it's not just the right thing to do, but it's the smart thing to do. If you don't invest in the talent and the ability and the energy of 50% of your population, you will lose out and you will struggle to achieve poverty eradication and sustainable development. And I think at the same time, in this context of global instability, it's also important to emphasise that I think we're far from alone and that we do work with a strong cross-regional group of like-minded member states who are advocating with us. We're going into the Commission on the Status of Women at the moment in New York. Very difficult negotiations going on there. We have a campaign for our Human Rights Council membership. We have our upcoming EU presidency. And we are really strongly committed to the UN system and the multilateral system as a whole. And this will continue to be a pillar of our foreign policy. I think it's an area where we can work with our like-minded member states to push for progress. When it comes to agricultural development and investing in girls, again, this is the most effective investment we can make for achieving food and nutrition security. And we were really honoured to co-sponsor the International Year of the Women Farmer this year with Jordan in the FAO and in the Rome-based agencies. We launched that event in the International Fund for Agricultural Development in February in Rome with President Mary Robinson. And again, we saw in the context of the negotiation for the 14th replenishment of that fund, a huge swathe of UN member states speaking up in support of investing in women farmers as key drivers of agricultural development. And this included access to land, which Ndidi has said there's huge progress to make there, access to finance, access to technology and inputs, and other critical factors. And these are issues for women farmers in Ireland as well. And we saw an event last week with Minister Hayden on recognising the International Year of the Women Farmer. And there's a number of action plans domestically that the Department of Agriculture is leading to advance this. But globally, it's really critical. But we've also seen that young women farmers are among the most innovative in terms of driving technology and innovation to address the impacts of climate change and to create more productive farms. Today, we heard from Elizabeth, who's using social media and IT to train thousands of people. We've heard other examples at IFAD at the launch that I was at a few weeks ago. There was a young woman who has created a hydroponic aquaculture business in Morocco in the desert. She's using the latest AI technology to create fish farms, highly productive fish farms in the desert. We had another woman from Malawi who has expanded her business. She's now employing thousands of young people across her region, using ICT, using social media, and using the latest technologies to expand productivity in contexts where climate change is having, frankly, really devastating impacts on their abilities to produce and bringing shocks that they haven't seen in recent years. So it's not just that it's the right thing to do. Young women, and women in particular, we know that they're the ones that will drive transformation in their economies. The evidence is there. And yet only 1% of global climate finance, climate adaptation finance, is going to small farmers, even though the majority of them are women. FAO research has shown closing the productivity and wage gaps between women and men in agri-food systems would add $1 trillion to global GDP and would make 45 million people more food insecure. So as Mary Robinson has pointed out, if we don't invest, it's $1 trillion missed opportunity. And so a priority for us going forward is to work to change the reality of where and who we invest in, and ensuring the resources can increasingly go to women smallholder farmers. And we know that they have systemic challenges. They have infrastructure challenges, with Elizabeth outlined earlier. They have financing challenges for their broader businessing environment, and Ndidi's points about social challenges and cultural challenges, which makes their leadership more difficult in a particular context. There are a broad range of challenges, so we need to address this globally and at country level. And I think for us, our engagements in the International Fund for Agricultural Development, FAO, the World Bank, all the international investors in the EU, in the climate finance negotiations, for us, it's really important that we're driving it at this level, but we also need to be working at country level. And we need to work with our partner countries to address the systems and structures that hold women farmers back. We're really proud to partner with IFAD and the Irish League of Credit Unions. We're working in Ethiopia and Tanzania and Rwanda with the Ministries of Finance and the Ministries of Agriculture and the Savings Cooperative Movement to strengthen access to finance for women smallholder farmers there. And similarly, we're really proud to partner with Self Help Africa. We have a range of projects in Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Zambia. And there we're supporting women smallholder farmers with knowledge and resources to diversify incomes and to be better able to handle shocks and extreme weather events. And in 2024, those programs supported over 38,000 women. Those are just two examples. We have a really wide range of engagements across our bilateral and multilateral investments in agriculture. And during the negotiations of the next EU financial framework, as well as the IFAD replenishment, as well as a number of critical negotiations, the climate negotiations that are coming up later in the year at COP, we will continue to advocate strongly for commitments and targets to seek to ensure that there's increased investment in gender equality and women across the whole range of areas, from programming to finance, technology and skills training. Infrastructure investments are also critical. So I think the arguments we're making don't change. We know from our own national experience that this is absolutely essential, and it's even more important in a context of declining resources, when we need to make the arguments to be more efficient and effective. Investing in women is the smartest investment that we can make. So we're strongly committed, and thank you so much for inviting me to address the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicky, and thanks for that natural segue that we have that brings us to Jacqueline, who we're delighted to have. She is our nutrition specialist and project manager in our program in Malawi, She's leading our food fortification initiative that works with schools, hospital and farmer cooperatives to expand access to fortified maize flour and biofortified crops. She also serves as a treasurer of the Nutrition Society of Malawi, and it's a fantastic opportunity for us to hear directly about this really impactful program. Thank you so much for joining us, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So as she has rightly introduced, just making sure you're able to see my screen.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah, so I'll be presenting, taking this opportunity to present one of the works that we are doing under Safe Help Africa in a project that we are implementing here in Malawi. So I welcome you all to this presentation. As mentioned, my name is Jacqueline Jarimela. I am a nutritionist bred here in Malawi. I have a master's in human nutrition, and I'm the treasurer of the Nutrition Society of Malawi Executive Board. I've worked in the field of nutrition for over 15 years now, and with various organizations. At the moment in the project, I am managing a consortium of 5 organizations that is including the Global Alliance for Nutrition Improvement and other organizations in that, also managing a team that is working on the ground within Save the Children. So in this project, we are receiving funding from the EU, and the full name of the project is Fortifying for Our Communities Under Nutrition Status through Strengthened CSO Capacity in Malawi. In this project, we are working with 5 organizations trying to deal with issues of malnutrition. Yeah, so we are trying to tackle the issues of malnutrition as one of the problems that is faced by women in various sectors in different countries. Let me talk a little bit in terms of the importance of micronutrient deficiencies in nutrition in general, but also how this impacts women. So Malawi as a nation, we are at the moment having 38% of our under 5 children that are stunted. And this stunting, we also have 12% of children that are underweight. All these are having an effect and it burdens women in terms of their health as well. So all these are contributed to micronutrient deficiencies. We have iron deficiencies, zinc, iodine, and vitamin A at the moment that are very high as 60% in terms of under 5 children prevalence in Malawi. And when you look at the trend of malnutrition, we have been improving, but at a certain point, we also went back. We were able to move from 47% to 37%, but now we are back at 38%. We had an analysis done by EFPRI, the Cost of Hunger report, which estimated that 23% of child mortality cases were associated with the undernutrition. How are the micronutrient deficiencies important? Different micronutrients that are essential in the body have got different roles that they play, which will also impact on the nutrition. They will impact on our female farmers. They will impact in the end in terms of productivity in general, because we look at issues of immune system, child development. In the end, all these challenges have an impact on women because 2/3 of women of reproductive age, they suffer from these problems. It increases their risk of maternal complications during childbirth, the likelihood of having low birth weight babies, as well as preterm birth is also high. And in the end, the productivity and economic participation, which we have been talking about through the various speakers, is also going to be affected. So that is why why this project, we are trying to look at cost-effective interventions that are available, which can help to reduce the rates of micronutrient deficiencies. So biofortification is one of the interventions in the project, which we are doing. And what do we mean by this? This is just a process of improving the nutritional values of the various crops through agronomic practices, can be through conventional plant breeding and climate resilient crop improvement. And these crops will naturally contain higher levels of the key micronutrients that are required, including the ones that I mentioned. So in Malawi, we have four crops that were released: the orange fresh sweet potato, the provitamin A maize, high iron beans, and also orange cassava. So in the project, we are promoting the three: the OFSP, the vitamin A maize, as well as the high iron beans. What is the impact if we embrace biofortification? We are using pre-existing measures, like the farmers, the female farmer whom we are talking about. We just want them to use these crops instead of, I heard Elizabeth promoting indigenous crops, the indigenous knowledge. This is part of the same. It is going to increase nutrient intake without changing any eating habits, even economic activities. It is going to improve maternal nutrition and strengthen child health, and also it helps to support female farmers with the improved seed system. What are we doing? What is our action in the FOCUS project in terms of biofortification? So what we are trying to do is to increase access to biofortified crops. And we have established so far 40 agricultural demonstration plots bearing these crops, making sure that the farmers and the farmer groups are learning from it, and also making sure that we are popularizing. The people need to be aware that there's this opportunity of using biofortified crops that are going to help in terms of their health and nutrition. We are also working with schools, the primary schools and early childhood development centers, where they're doing the homegrown school meals. So we want them to have school gardens. We are providing them with the startup seeds and planting materials for the crops, making sure that they are cultivating in their homegrown, and they'll also be involved in the other part of fortification, which I'll be talking about. So far, we are using the local community, trying to empower women, the female farmers specifically. We trained the 17 decentralized vine multipliers in terms of the orange fresh sweet potato. So after training them, we equipped them with the knowledge in terms of how they can multiply the seeds. We had to procure basic seed because access to certified seed is also a challenge. So we had to procure basic seed from the Department of Agriculture Research to give them, for them to multiply. And the project had to buy from them on an agreement that was made with them. So they have managed to do that. And Bridget in the picture is one of the farmers that benefited from this. They have been able to sell the OFSP, and now they are also hosting the demo plots, some of them. And this seed is going to reach to the care groups, to the farmer cooperatives, and other groups that are there at low level. We have the agro-dealer capacity assessments and engagement in trying to make sure that we are bridging that gap, which comes with the national level seed companies that are selling these certified seeds and the ones that in rural communities. We conducted a mapping of biofortified food products and find that there are really few on the market, but it is an opportunity that is there. People are still cultivating sweet potatoes, but not using the orange fresh one. People are cultivating maize. Maize is a staple food in Malawi. Almost every farmer has a maize field. So if we replace the white one with the orange one, we are going to deal with the vitamin A challenges that we are facing. So we'll also be conducting seed system strengthening, conducting agriculture expos on biofortified crop seeds, in just trying to promote these crops. What else are we doing in the project? We are looking at industrial fortification. So industrial fortification is the process of adding micronutrients to food during processing. And in Malawi, there have been efforts in terms of industrial fortification that have been already taking place. So we have vitamin A fortification of sugar, as well as oil, and also there's mandatory salt iodization that has been taking place. And lately we have we also have the maize flour fortification that has been introduced, apart from the wheat flour, which has been there also. So how will this fortification help? There's that immediate impact in terms of reducing micronutrient deficiencies, because people are just using the food vehicles that has been fortified these products are already there in the market, are already used on a daily basis. So if that is embraced, we are going to achieve from that. It's cost effective in terms of reaching large population, and it also helps to reduce the prevalence of problems, nutrition problems such as goiter, child blindness, spinal bifida, as well as hydrocephalus. This has been observed. There's been that impact that has been established after we started fortification of sugar in Malawi and noticed the challenges that had reduced. So food fortification in Africa, we are saying it's a right for women. Why am I saying it is a right for women? Because it's mandatory. You can see all those countries that have now embraced fortification, and there's mandatory fortification of different food vehicles in the African communities. It is going to help our women because they are the ones that are vulnerable also to malnutrition and highly burdened. But at the same time, you find challenges that compliance as well as the enforcement is also there. A food vehicle might be labeled that it is fortified maybe with vitamin A, but we take it to the sample, we take a sample to the lab, we find that the amount of vitamin A that is there is not even adequate enough, or maybe there is no vitamin A. So the project is trying to also bridge that gap to make sure that the fortification is embraced nationwide in increasing the capacity of the National Fortification Alliance, making sure that samples are collected and tested, and women are really having access to this. So in the project, what is our action? What are we doing? We are bringing in, it's a pilot. It's something new in Malawi because we haven't done this. So we want to introduce those fires at maize meal level because, as I said, maize is our staple, and most of the Malawian households in each of and every day we do consume 1 or 2 food vehicles containing maize. So where do we get our maize from? The ones in the shop are fortified, labeled, produced at industry level, but most of the homes take their maize to the maize mill and mill it, bring it back to home, prepare porridge for children, prepare whatever food. So we want to make sure that this is fortified because at maize mill level, there is no fortification that is being done locally at the moment. So the project is being piloted in 4 districts in Malawi, where we want to install those fires to 31 local mills and make sure that food fortification is happening right at that level. Another challenge in this industry is the availability of the premix. The premix is just the fortificant that is used. And the advantage of fortifying maize flour is that we use a number of micronutrients, unlike maybe sugar, which will only be vitamin A. So in the maize premix, we have about 9 micronutrients, different of them, iron, zinc, all the changes that we mentioned. So all those micronutrients are going to be found in one premix that will just be added in the maize flour during maize milling. So the premix distribution itself was a challenge. So we are also trying to conduct a mapping and also create those linkages, making sure that we have a national level company that will be importing and selling locally to these maize millers. And we'll also enhance the enforcement and the adherence to national standards, as I already mentioned. In the end, we want to create that awareness and also do policy advocacy to make sure that this intervention is widely adopted. What are the anticipated results?
Great,
at the end of the project?
Sorry, Jacqueline, we won't have time to go through all of the results just yet because we just need to make sure we have enough time for our last speaker as well. But this will be recorded. So if people are interested, they'll be able to see this information, and also we can provide this to anybody who would like to see more of these figures and statistics as well. Sorry, Jacqueline.
No problem, because that was my last slide. So I think people have been able to read. Thank you, and over to you.
Amazing results there, and lots of questions coming through specifically on the program. So we will come back to you very, very quickly with the results there that were in Jacqueline's presentation, and we will answer those questions that are coming through. We're seeing them coming through quick and fast, so you've provoked a lot of interest. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And now we go on to our final speaker for today. A huge privilege to be able to welcome Professor Ruth Onangio, from a former parliamentarian and founder of Agri-Food NGO Rural Outreach Africa. Ruth was a lecturer and professor of nutrition at Jomo Kenyatta University in Nairobi and served as a shadow minister for education, science and technology during her term in the Kenyan Parliament. She is currently the editor-in-chief and founder of the African Journal of Food, Agriculture, Nutrition and Development. Thank you so much, Ruth, for joining us. It's a great privilege for us to have you here. And after Ruth, we'll open up for final questions and answers. So please do keep them coming in. Thank you so much, Ruth. Handing over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Niamh, and thank you and Mona for finding me on LinkedIn to join this webinar. I won't take too much time, because you can always Google me and find out so much about me. I've been around for a long time, but I've really enjoyed, and you remember, I specifically asked to be the last to speak. I've learned a lot. I've seen very enthusiastic young professionals, and it's just amazing. And that makes me happy, because when I was starting off, for a long time, I was the only one talking about nutrition in Kenya. And right now, we have many, many young people, who are doing great work. And I listened to Elizabeth, where she was talking about the variety of things, so many things she's doing. And it's so typical of women. We just get involved in everything. You are working on one thing, something else comes up, and there you are. You are right in it, and you connect all of them because it just makes, a lot of sense for you. And then Didi, where she talked about being humble. When mid-career I went to the ground as an academic, I became the student. And I had to become humble to be able to learn, to be able to get us accepted. I thought I knew so much I was going to teach, but that wasn't the case. And then Vicky, I want to thank you, Vicky Dillon. You have helped us in Africa. The international community has really assisted us. You have given us courage to address the issues we get confronted by in our own communities, the cultural issues, and they're still there. And Jackie, thank you so much, talking about the nutrition, the malnutrition, the orange flesh, and so on. And these issues just don't go away. And so why am I available to even speak here? One of the things I've learned is that so long as you're in food systems, so long as you are talking about nutrition and health, by the way, you don't retire because at every stage in your lifespan, things change. They change for you personally as well. You see more and you want to share more of what you experience, and you find that even your own body changes. The foods you eat, what you want, what should keep you healthy. Sometimes as you go on, you develop certain disease conditions. You get away from the foods you like, things change. Yeah. So, but what I found really is that many times we act as if nothing has ever changed. We get discouraged. Like I'll be in the city, then I go to the village and I say, I thought this had changed. And it hasn't changed. You find children, they are going hungry. Mothers are working almost the whole day. They haven't left anything for the children to eat. And so you find women operating in different worlds. So personally, I concentrated on smallholder farmers. And I still am on smallholder farmers. And as the climate changes, as the climate changes, it's just so difficult for women. They just stay those same women. The technology changes, it affects them. The world war starts. Everything is expensive. The women don't even understand what's going on with the world. Have you ever seen women now in the ongoing war right now? We don't know what to do. We just get affected. When climate changes, for example, grain needs to be dried. And at the time of drying, it's just pouring, torrential rain. Everything is just destroyed. In Kenya right now, in Nairobi, we're having floods. And when you look at the floods, you look at the houses flooded, you look at people displaced, people have died, you can be sure it's mostly the women who are going to get the brunt of this. So, as I've grown older, Niamh, I've decided God made me as a woman and I'm a superhuman being. We are super. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Honestly, we don't, But another thing I learned that for women to rise up, to be passionate, to speak the way some of us here are speaking, we need the support of men. At one time, we started talking about men as strategic allies. I can tell you, you can be where you are. You want to be a leader. You want to be promoted to a certain level. I don't know about your cultures in the North, but the cultures in Africa, you need the support of not just your immediate male family members, but like the whole community has to support you. I started in my community and I didn't see any women chiefs, any women assistant chiefs in the Kenyan system we have. Right now we have them because I started asking, where are they? Where are they? But they need the whole village to support them. But a man just wakes up, he goes to apply, he gets supported, and he comes home and says, I became a chief. Nobody cares. But the woman has really to be supported. So we have a lot more to do. But I believe that when we do it right, we are a good example. So as I've grown older now, I intentionally support women, but I also intentionally get men and even reward them, give them accolades, recognize them to support the women. I also mentor. I don't mentor women only, I mentor young men as well. Because women are busy learning. We have to keep learning, like Didi said. You have to keep learning. But the men don't learn as much as the women are doing. And then at the end of the day, you find the women are above and the men are behind, and they are miserable and they don't know what to do. So I just agree completely that we have to do this together. We have to move together. But those of you who are funding, we still don't get enough funding for women to do things. And we don't also celebrate our own women enough. We don't give them enough recognition. In my own journal, I just give everyone recognition, but I'm always looking out for the women who are publishing, the women who are scientists, and then just giving them recognition. And I believe that when it comes to justice, legal issues, women tend to get afraid. Women sit back. Women can't go forward. They have to have someone to support them. So when it comes to justice and rights, we are still very, very behind. And we just have to be intentional about this because it can't go on like this. When we have everybody at the table, everybody involved, it just makes everything much better. So I know you wanted me to just talk about what can we do. It's not all lost. It's not all lost. I've seen many changes along the way. But sometimes when we say things like the more we say, the more we stay in the same place. But so that's why it's important to recognize, pick out what is so critical, where we have made gains. Because when I was in the Kenyan parliament, years ago, we were only 18 women out of 224 members at that time. And also, women were not even visible. Then I was part of those who made the 2010 Kenyan Constitution. The Kenyans who are here listening, I'm sure they are here listening to this. Now, where we are, you would organize and make appointments, and they say, oh, where are the women? Where are the women? You have to go looking for those women. Something new happens when in my own country, in my own community, women get married. Something holds them back. Your father brings you up. My daughter is so brilliant, takes you to school, you get your PhDs and so on, and then you get married to some community which doesn't want to see a woman up there. So this is an ongoing struggle. And I think the more we share, the more we encourage each other, the more we can get forward. But whatever we do, we succeed better when we stay humble. Humility, not giving up, not looking like we are weak, because we are not, but staying humble, maintaining our natural qualities and attributes as women, but being in leadership and doing the right thing. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll leave it there, but I've really enjoyed this, by the way. And happy International Women's Farmer Year, and happy Women's Day. And the men, celebrate with us. We love you when you celebrate with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Oh, wow. What an amazing time we've had today. I have a few questions. I think I have a question for just about everybody. So if we could just stay on. First of all, I'll go to you, Vicky. Are there specific things that Ireland can do during its presidency of the EU to change how European institutions finance women in agriculture, given that only 1% of funding goes to smallholders at present?
Thanks, Niamh. No, I mean, that's definitely something that's really important to us, not just during our presidency, but going forward. It's a key priority for our development policy. We will be looking to have discussions during the presidency around, in particular, Global Gateway, the new EU initiative, and sustainable food systems, because I think the Global Gateway initiative has huge potential in terms of addressing some of the critical infrastructure challenges, building value chains, building export value chains, and addressing some of the issues that we've seen discussed today. But it will be key to link smallholder farmers and women into those investments. So we're looking to hopefully have a discussion around those issues. Before, during, and after our presidency, we're going into the EFAD 14 replenishment, where a number of EU member states will be engaged, and that will be a big opportunity again to discuss EFAD being one of the biggest investors in agricultural development. It's an IFI based in Rome, but also the World Bank's AgriConnect initiative. So I think there's a lot happening on the international sphere, and we will be certainly engaging. And as I said, going into the COP negotiations in November, that's another really important opportunity to look at the climate financing in particular and adaptation financing in particular. So yeah, this will definitely be a priority for us in the next 6 months and going forward.
Sorry, thanks, Vicky. There's a lot going on there. Thank you. Jacqueline, what are your thoughts on quality protein maize? Does it have a role in improving child nutrition?
Sure, yes. QPM is one of the biofortified crops that is being promoted. So yes, it plays a very big role in terms of dealing with the protein, energy, and malnutrition, but also to mention that the challenge that comes with biofortification is also the lack of awareness for people to understand, to know that this, if we cultivate this maize, for example, it's going to have these extra benefits apart from just providing the energy, which people look into it. So micronutrient deficiencies are taken as hidden hunger. One might feel full eating every day, thinking that they are okay, but they have the hidden hunger within themselves. They don't know that there's something lacking in them. Zinc deficiency, for example, we are saying over 60% have this in their bodies, but people don't know. What you see are the effects, the end effects, the issues of recurring disease infections because of the compromised immune system. So what we are also doing in the project is to trying to make sure that we teach the women. They need to understand the importance of embracing biofortification. So I also just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. I have another small number of questions, if you can just bear with me. Elizabeth, if you can hear us, how can we better support women in rural areas to transition from subsistence farming to sustainable agribusiness?
Thank you for the question. So for women in rural areas, really, if they're given the market, they can be supported. Most of the times, farmers are price takers. So if women are given better markets and sure markets, they'll be able to grow their business and move from subsistence farming to actually farming as a business. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline, another one for you. How reliant is large-scale biofortification on external international finance? Or have national governments embraced and invested in this approach? Sure,
I would say it is very, very reliant because the its cost effectiveness in itself helps to do this. And Malawi as a nation, we have the Department of Agriculture Research working on plant breeding, trying to introduce more of these crops. I mentioned of the cassava, which at the moment we haven't included yet because further studies are still taking place. The one that was released was more susceptible to diseases and pests, so they are trying to control all that. In terms of how the national government has embraced this, we also have we still have a way to go, although at the moment it's mentioned in some of the policies like the National Sector Nutrition Policy, the Agriculture Sector Policy, but then the enforcement of it, the implementation of part of it. So there's need for the civil society to come in also with advocacy, making sure that it's being adopted and it is receiving the adequate funding that is supposed to go to the sector. So I think in short, that's what I would say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth, what gives you hope for the future?
What gives me hope for the future? Oh dear, what does? You know, Niv, right now I've been saying I miss the world before me, my past. It shouldn't be the case. But you know, my past was a good past, you know? When there wasn't a war, when climate wasn't a big issue, you knew when to plant, when to harvest. We had the traditional foods. Somehow we grew. I grew tall myself. I didn't suffer malnutrition, and my parents, lowly as they were, could afford to pay, and they insisted on paying my school fees. I had opportunity to win scholarship to go to the US. I was a tomboy, so I fought with the men. Now I operate with the men anyway, because my father allowed me. It's like we had more liberties in the past than we do today. So now I struggle fitting with the agencies, the young ones, and but I encourage them. There must be a better world in the future, the better time, because we're just too many young people with menial jobs. They are educated. They don't know what to do. They know how to feed their families, you know, both men and women. But I've now seen the men, really young men, very desperate. They can't even get married, you know. Now in Kenya, we are seeing a lot of mental illness and suicides, you know, people taking their lives. I don't know what to do. But clearly, governance is an issue. We don't have good leaders like we had before. But what to do? We have to keep hopeful. We have to just remain hopeful. And those of us who pray to our Maker, we have to pray and we have to mentor. So I mentor, I'm available. I'm available to talk, and all of us can do it. Personally, our personal level. We have to do something. You know, what can you do to help someone else, to help the other person? Not just materially, but you know, we can just help by being available to help young people to, you know, navigate a very difficult world right now, Niv. That's it. Remain hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. And I think the last question is directed to you, Vicky. Do you work directly with organizations in the Horn of Africa interested in partnering with you to implement women empowering food systems initiatives and climate resilience initiatives?
Thanks, Niamh. Well, yeah, I mean, we have a strong portfolio of programs in the Horn of Africa, and it's a big focus of us for our investments in both food and nutrition security and agricultural development. So, yeah, I mean, it's a priority area for us, and I think it will continue to be.
Okay, I think we are going to draw it to a close just there now. It has been an absolute honor to moderate this session today. I want to say a huge Thank you to everybody for your participation, for your time, for your engagement, for your questions. For anybody who has got any follow-up questions, please do stay in touch with us. I believe in the chat there is an email address that you can reach out to for any further questions. Please do stay in touch with us on our socials as well, and have a wonderful and meaningful and intentional International Women's Day. It's been my absolute pleasure to moderate. Thank you to the team working in the background, and thank you again to all of you. It has been a fantastic day for me. Thank you very much on behalf of everybody in Self-Help Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you so much.